Aldoverdi.
Thank you. Was the Gators recruiting budget. And look, I don't think you can take this however you like. I don't know. There's multiple ways of looking at it. We kind of talked precast about it. You guys had your own opinion about it. We spent about $1.6 million in recruiting for the 2022 physical year. Steve, you said FSU spent about how much it was?
1.257 was the actual number. I looked it up a little bit further after the precast.
Okay, and Florida spent.
So you guys definitely outspent us.
We spent a program record, mind you, of 1.6 from July 21st to June 2022, which ranked us 10th nationally. So not too shabby. We ranked behind the likes of Georgia, who had the highest spending of $4.51 million. It's easy to do that when you win a natty. You got to cut some extra spending dollars to go around. Followed by A&M with 2.9, Tennessee also at 2.9, and I think it definitely showed with landing a top-tier quarterback. Alabama at 2.3, Clemson at 3.1, Oklahoma.
3.1 for Clemson is amazing. I mean, if you think about the total, like just the size of that school and like just the actual like student population and where it is in the middle of nowhere, $3.158 million for their recruiting budget alone for that tiny ass little school is unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think you could argue that this 1.6 for Florida is a little underwhelming, even though it is a record, comparably to these other schools that I'm mentioning. Texas 2.3, Michigan 2.4, and even Oregon at 1.8. Now, Oregon, that seems low. I feel like Oregon, all they do is football.
It does.
Yeah.
Let me throw one crazy number at you here real fast.
Go ahead.
And I'm just looking at CBS. This is for the Big Ten. Michigan had a $2.2 million spending budget. Second in the Big Ten, ahead of Ohio State, Maryland, Penn State. Second in the Big Ten, Rutgers at $1.6 million. Rutgers.
Wow.
In New Jersey. And that jumped from an average from 2017 to 2022. Their average recruiting budget was $879,000, and they jumped up to 1.6. They essentially doubled their recruiting budget in 1 year. Tell me that Big Ten money ain't something, baby. What is up, Rutgers?
That is fair. That's a hot take if I've ever heard. That's a pad. That's a lock stat right there, boys. That's look at Steve. Steve was prepared. He did his homework, boys. But look, there is something to be said. I gave you a compliment. That's why I don't tell you to do a good job. Because I see you guys in the comments saying we need to bump that budget up. So let me take it one step further. We know what Kirby does. He flies around in his helicopters to Kroger's. So that's part of where the
helicopters.
Yeah, that's part of where the money's being spent. Florida, let me see if I can find it here. They have two jets, a $3 million jet and an $8 million jet. They already have it. We own it. They're two private jets that we own. So that doesn't account for the recruiting budget. We also have an aviation department budget of just about $900,000. None of those things are under the recruiting budget tab. So I said, okay, let's take half the aviation budget. Let's add it to the 1.6. That puts us to 1.9. And then if we're out here renting jets and helicopters like Kirby is, we're definitely up a little bit higher, probably closer to that 3 range. Still not at a 4.5, right? But definitely higher up. Look, could part of it be due to the fact where a lot of top recruits are in Florida, so traveling-wise, we don't have to spend as much. Now, with it being in Texas, more of the top talent being in Texas, could we see this budget change a little bit? Sure. Mind you, this isn't money being bought for players. It's the physical act of going around and recruiting. So just so nobody gets confused of we spent this much money on buying players. No, it's the act of doing. So just something to think about. It's interesting to see. I love that we broke a record, though. I think Billy was very adamant. And I think that was part. If I remember correctly, I know part of his negotiation was, hey, I want to be able to hire as many people as I want. I want to bring as much staff as I possibly can. Mind you, I think we spend the second most on staffing. So if we have to spend more on staffing and less on recruiting, right, it weighs itself out. Also, ROI, right, return on investment. We're spending 1.6, and we can finish in a top 7 class. So we spend 3/4 of the budget that Georgia and all these other guys are doing, and they're finishing 2 spots ahead of us. That's massive. Now, where's the value, I guess you could argue, of having a great ROI, right? If you're not winning, what are you doing with that extra money anyways? That part, I don't know. I couldn't answer that one. I don't know if you were to save, let's say, 1.2 million in recruiting, how does that translate into? Is it translate into a better, just more towards the school, towards facility? I don't know. I don't know how it would be facilitated. So that is interesting to think. Like, what are you guys' thoughts?
Yeah.
Well, if I'm a recruit for Florida and the $3 million jet shows up instead of the $8 million jet, I'm a little bit put off. So I'm not sure if this is going to be the team for me. That's my first thought.
Sure. So just throw the $3 million jet away because they know when the poor one shows up.
I don't think a jet estimator is going to be with a recruit when they show up. So they probably don't even know how much it costs. But it's not what you spend; it's how you spend it. I've always been a big fan of like if you make a $45,000 a year salary and somebody else makes $120,000, do they have a $600,000 house, a $700, $800 a month car payment? Do they have all these other bills that you don't have? And maybe you have more free money than they do, but you're making a less of a salary. Maybe you took the $100,000 house and the paid off cheap $3,000 car, whatever. I mean, it doesn't matter like how much money you have. It's what you spend it on and how it's used.
Sure. And look, between the hedge makes a good point because if you have jets, you have to land at airports. Helicopters, you get to land at high school football fields. So he's not wrong there. There is definitely an advantage to having a helicopter you just land in their backyard.